Hello and welcome to March 11th, where we're reading Numbers 23 through 25. These chapters cover Israel's conflict with Moab as we began yesterday. Balaam is a major player in that, though God is very careful with what he's allowed to do, as you are going to see, before the Moabite women take the center stage and cause Israel to destroy themselves. But again, that's something you'll touch on when you get to chapter 25. Some of the story is a little bit funny. A lot of the story is pretty sad, but we're going to work through all of it. And so hopefully you go read those on your own, and then maybe you come back here and benefit from this. If you want a further breakdown on any of these individual chapters, in chapter 23, you have the start of Balaam. We were introduced to him in chapter 22, so we already know who he is. He's had this confrontation with his donkey, so he knows that God is here. He knows that God is going to dictate what he says, and yet Balaam sets out to go and sacrifice something to God, and maybe God will let him curse Israel. Of course, God doesn't. God says no. God blesses Israel instead. Balak, the king of Moab, gets very angry with Balaam, and Balaam says, I'll try again. And so he tries again. He offers more sacrifices to God, seeking the opportunity to curse Israel. God says no. God causes Balaam to bless Israel, and Balak is very angry again. And so Balaam tries a third time to set up sacrifices so that maybe God will let him curse Israel. And in chapter 24, God says no. Balaam doesn't even try. He doesn't even start sacrificing them. He knows that God is not going to let him curse Israel, and so he'd rather not say anything than do what God says, which is to bless Israel. God takes him over for a minute, and he causes him to bless Israel anyway and prophesy against Moab instead. And so Balaam's story comes to an end. He's kind of just a non-repentant prophet. He's kind of like Jonah, nominally following God, but really against God the whole time. In chapter 25, you have this instance where Israel has gone through the Moabite thing no problem until the Moabite women come into the camp. And some other women from around that area, they come into the camp. They start distracting Israel. They start seducing Israel into all kinds of sexual evils, and God strikes Israel for that. And so Israel cannot be killed by their enemies, but they can be destroyed by themselves, and their own actions bring their consequences. We will later find out that Balaam was the one who advised this tactic in chapter 25. And so, it was Balaam's fault the whole time. He found his way to curse Israel by letting Israel curse themselves. Hey, if you're one of God's people, don't curse yourself before him. That's all we have for today. If you're interested in further notes on that, go over to the written page and check those out. And if not, then I will see you tomorrow, March 12th, where we're reading Numbers 26 and 27.